It's quite possible that we're streaming. Hey, this is Jason Brenizer. I'm with the Phenomenal Future Project. I am so happy to be here, able to stream to you live from my computer to multiple platforms around the world. It's just cool that we live in this time. Hopefully we don't have too many video glitches. But today I wanted to talk to you artists out there and give you kind of a scenario. I get a lot of questions from people who kind of are stuck in the old way of thinking, and I want to cover some things about what's changing here in the world with blockchain and Web3, smart contracts, NFTs, all that kind of good stuff. Lots of artists don't know that there is a whole new game in town, and I am here to proselytize and let you hear that you have more options than you've ever had to be able to get your lovely creations out in the world. So big question I have here, or a belief that I hear a lot, and I'm going to use an example from authors of fiction, non-fiction, doesn't really matter which, but if that's not you, I still think there's going to be something in this podcast for you, or video, or whatever this is, whatever format you're watching or listening to this. So please listen. I think you can, if you're an artist, there's going to be something great in here for you. I would ask, we are trying to grow the audience here and trying to get the news out to as many artists as possible and help them along this path of having a phenomenal, lucrative future. And so if you could share this podcast or this episode with somebody, that would be fantastic. And also, depending on where you're watching this, subscribe and follow. That helps us go up much higher in the rankings. So now that all that's out of the way, here is what I hear so often from authors. I need a publisher to push my book to be a New York Times bestseller and make decent money at my art. So yeah, now I'm going to throw this out there right from the start that this belief is kind of like working really hard to make some money and then putting all of that money into the lottery and having faith that you're going to win. Now, of course, the house always wins. Yes, it's true. Somebody, one person, wins, but those pots get really large and people don't win week after week after week after week, and finally somebody gets those numbers. But do you really want to take a chance on that? I'm going to tell you a little story about my dad. He passed away many years ago, and when I went to his house to clean out his effects and kind of deal with all of that stuff, there was one drawer in his bedroom that I opened up. And this drawer didn't have any clothes in it, didn't have any trinkets in it, nothing from his life that was important or anything like that. No, what I found in this drawer were lottery tickets. The kind of quick picks and the draws and those kinds of things, the lotto, the giant thing with all the balls that go around and around and people hope they win, right? It was just jam-packed full. I mean, it was so full of non-winning lottery tickets that he never threw away, that when I opened the drawer, I couldn't even really get the drawer open. And there were lottery tickets that had fallen, each time the drawer opened, they had kind of gone behind the edge and they were kind of jammed in behind all the other drawers and everything. I don't know what he was doing. If he was trying to tell himself every time he opened that drawer, I need to stop this, or what. It was definitely a bizarre compulsion. But to really, I let that sink in. I'm like, my dad thought that he had so little control over so many parts of his life that he felt compelled to just get lucky. Just a random draw of the world. That was kind of, I guess, a worldview that he had. He was kind of a stoic, quiet man, so I can only guess. But I tell you, that's not how I want to live my life, and I don't think you should live your life that way either. And when you put your faith in gatekeepers and give them your power, that's kind of what you're doing. All right. So let's throw the scenario out there. Let's say you're a novelist, and it doesn't matter the genre, but let's just pick fantasy novels. Now, fantasy novels are usually really, really long. Okay. It might take you over a year to write a fantasy book, even 1,000 words a day. Some of these fantasy books are 300,000 words or something like that. I mean, it's absolutely nuts. So it takes you a long time to write your book. Well, then what comes next? In a traditional way of trying to get published, well, you got to find an agent that's willing to read your book. Okay, now it's a very long book. How many agents are going to look at this and go, Jesus, I don't want to read this whole thing? Okay, so you've got that stacked against you. You send it off to a whole bunch of agents. Most of them you don't even hear from. Most of them the ones that you do hear from are going to send you canned letters as to, why they're not taking on new clients, et cetera, et cetera. But let's say you persevere and you finally, after 8 months of just constantly sending an inquiry to these agents, that you get one hungry agent that's willing to take you on. Okay. Now this agent has to now go to publishers and shop your book around. Well, if you're unknown or you've only published a couple things that didn't sell very well, now you have the problem of a publisher. You're at another layer here, right, of the funnel. You have a publisher who, all of the people that work at a publisher, maybe none of them want to read your book. But let's say some of them do, and again, same type of response. You don't get much of a response. They certainly don't give you much feedback, like, hey, do this and we'll take another look at it. So let's say your agent just manages to push it through and you finally get one little offer from a little publishing company. Now, let's say that you don't have much experience at this. You don't have a track record, right? You're not a bestseller yet. That's the goal. Okay, so you don't really have leverage in negotiations. In fact, there's almost no negotiation. They will give you a contract and say, this is our offer, take it or leave it. And that offer is obviously going to benefit them greatly and not be that awesome for you. So let's say you get $5,000 up front for signing this contract. And you get 12% of any royalties, book sales that come in. And your agent takes 10% of the 12% you get. And the publishing company, gets the rest. Or the booksellers or whatever, of course, are getting a cut of that as well. But you understand my point. You're getting a very small percentage of all that hard work you put in. Now, we're 2 years in. You wrote your book, got an agent, you finally got a publisher, and you're just like, oh good, now I don't have to worry about this. I can go write my next book. Although you probably could have been doing that while you were waiting on this other process. But, I've certainly known a lot of authors that don't. Just keep chugging away and writing and writing and writing. That kind of put all their eggs in this one basket. Again, we're talking about the lottery. This one book is going to, make or break you, right? So the publisher, now, you've signed a contract because you're like, oh, okay, good. So you're like, the money should be rolling in. Well, you get the $5,000. It's, going to make a couple house payments if you're lucky. And you have to wait another year before they actually publish your book. They have this long runway of all of these other books that are in front of you, and you just kind of have to wait out on the tarmac and wait for them to get to your book. So we're now at 3 years, and they published the book, and sales are okay, let's say. It's not just crickets. You've got a little bit of traction because they did just a tiny bit of marketing there at the beginning. But not a lot. They didn't put a lot of money into this because they just want to see if somehow it gets lucky. The publisher, I have to tell you these days, they're actually looking at you to do the marketing. They tell you that they're going to do this big push and do all this stuff, but it's not an ongoing effort, usually. It's just a little bit up front. They might pay for some advertisements, that kind of thing. And then, yep, they're rolling the dice too. So let's say you do get some sales. Great. Well, guess what? There's an 18-month lag between when sales actually happen And when the accounting catches up with it and starts sending you money. But wait, you don't actually get money yet, because they're going to pay off your advance first, because you see, your advance was not actually money that they paid you for your book. It was, that's why it's called an advance. They're giving you money assuming that you will make money on sales. So all of that initial stuff is going to pay off the $5,000 that they, quote, lent you, right? So you've got a long lag before you ever see any money. Hopefully you get some sales, but they're not doing the marketing, so you have to do all that work anyway. And so many authors on their first book, the first book doesn't do so hot, and the publisher drops them, and you have to go through this process all over again. Now, I'm not saying this to dissuade you from making your art. It might sound like that's what I'm doing, but there are alternatives here. There's certainly independent publishing that you can go that route as well. You're gonna have to do your own marketing, but you're gonna have to do that anyway. So why give somebody else 90% of your possible earnings, when if you go independent publishing, you can get 70%. That's a little bit better, right? If you publish through Amazon or some of the other online options for publishing a book. So, okay, so we flipped that on its head a little bit. But now we get to blockchain, NFTs, and a whole different model, okay? The problem with those other two models is you don't have a direct contact with whoever buys your book, right? If someone goes to a bookstore and they buy a book, you don't know who that was. If someone goes to Amazon and buys your book, you don't know who that is. You can't tell them later that you have a second book available. The idea is you want to actually have a relationship with the people who are buying your books. You want them to buy directly from you. But how do you do that, right? Distribution was such a big deal before, because literally there were physical copies that had to go all over the place, and that's why we had those stores. It's not like that anymore. We have the ability to make all these amazing relationships with people through social media, and new things coming along, decentralized social media, which is cool. I've talked about that a little bit on some of these other videos, but gives you a whole new way of being able to get information out to people who have already purchased things from you. So let's give you the alternative view here. Now, I have talked a lot about making NFT series. This works for visual artists, this works for musicians, this works for writers and authors, it works for even people who are making physical art and can make some sort of an experience around the digital or virtual interaction with that art as well, which is really, really amazing to kind of marry those two worlds of virtual and physical reality. So let's say you make an NFT series up front, like you've written your first draft of your book. You know you need to go through a second draft, but you know your characters, you know your main plot, you know the locations of where everything is taking place, and you know, of course, the genre. Maybe it's a thriller, maybe it's a fantasy, maybe it's an urban fantasy, it's a vampire novel, right? Whatever it is that you're writing, those particulars about the type of book that you're creating out there, and the story world that you're creating, all of that stuff is ripe for creating digital collectibles. So it could be characters, it could be items that are in your book, it could be locations, it could be so many different options here. It's fantastic, right? Imagine you were a writer of Harry Potter. I mean, you could make an NFT of the sorting hat, right? That they put on all of the students to tell them which of the four different houses, I guess, that the that the little young wizards get to go into, right? Depending on their demeanor and their skills and all that kind of stuff, who they might become. That would be pretty amazing, right? So little things like that. So essentially, an NFT series is to build excitement and engagement about something that you're creating, and you're not quite done yet. This is not the big finale of what it is, but you're essentially being able to make money on the marketing of the thing that you will eventually be putting out. Okay, you're building buzz, you're building connections with people, There are a lot of people out there who love collecting NFTs, and there's also this opportunity to create really amazing experiences through the NFTs as well. You can create games within an NFT series through a series of smart contracts. It's a kind of the sky is the limit in so many ways. So you've created an NFT series up front. You're able to be writing or doing your edit draft while you're also pushing the stuff out there. You're pre-marketing your work. You could even serialize it as you finish going through the draft and you're kind of cleaning it up and doing all of that. It could be audiobook serialization. It could be, there's just so many options. It's so wonderful, right, to really get people to engage with the work that you're doing. Now, here's another aspect of this too, right? I've been talking about NFTs. Now, a lot of NFTs out there have a visual piece of art that goes along with them, something that people can use as kind of a badge to show, look, I'm part of this tribe. So I come back to the sorting hat. You know, someone might have that as their main profile picture on Twitter or something. You know, the very special NFT that it's a one-off, right? It's unique, we'll say. And someone may use that to say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I love, and these are my people. You then can get to partner with other types of artists to create multimedia NFTs. So there's a story aspect to this that could be embedded in the NFT. There is visual art that could be with any of these aspects of the stories that you're writing, the story world, characters, etc. There could be music. There could be essentially a soundtrack for the novel that gets created. And those could be tied to NFTs as well. And there could even be animation. You could be working with a graphic novelist or a person who does manga. I mean, the sky's the limit here. And what's really cool about this is the collaborating group of people. Well, if the graphic novelist who is doing the drawings, well, there might be someone who's doing the inking. There might be someone who's taking, the help, writing with you to be able to put it in that slightly different format. It's almost like writing a screenplay. All of those people might have fans as well. And so as a collaboration, you're all sharing a fan base. So where you might have had 100 people that are interested in your story, and each one of these people has hundreds of people as well, you all benefit from that collaboration, which is really cool. So you, together, as collaborators, you're growing your audience that much faster. Now you can also pre-shop, basically use this type of traction that you're gaining with an audience to pre-shop potential movie deals or television deals for the stories that you're writing. You basically show you have a built-in audience already and that it's growing over time. And that gives you a lot of leverage. So when you are trying to negotiate, rather than giving that to the publishing company, they would be taking the lion's share of all of those rights that you would have for the stories that you've created. Now, instead of giving that away, you could actually have production companies coming to you because they're scouring NFTs because it's the hot new thing, and they recognize that that is a built-in kind of pre-market for them to prove that something has traction, because it costs millions and millions of dollars to go and create those types of productions, and they want to believe that they're going to do well, and that helps them have that belief. Let's see, what else do I have here? So at this point, now that I painted this new picture for what's possible for you. Now, and you can also see that you've been writing all along the way, and there's no delay. There's no delay finding an agent, a publisher, waiting for a book to be published, waiting for the money to come in with that giant lag. All of that stuff. Well, no, you can dream up something, work on your story, create an NFT series, publish the book, be working on the next story, and you can compress in that 3 years we talked about before, where you were lucky to see if one book was going to work or not. You could have written 4, 5, 6 different stories. They don't necessarily have to be as long in this scenario, right? It could be broken, and it can be kind of sliced up into smaller bits, almost like episodes. So you can be putting out work constantly and testing the market and see what hits. You can also be playing in different genres, right? Now, a publishing company may say, your first book, maybe it did do well. Now they're going to pigeonhole you and say, that's who you are. You're this person. We don't want to confuse any of your fans who like fantasy but don't like science fiction or don't like romance novels. Okay? Who's to say? You can do whatever the heck you want. In this scenario, you control your career. So wherever inspiration strikes, okay, you can follow that and iterate very quickly to see what works, what sticks, and what doesn't. I think that's really cool. Remember, now, you're also making 95% instead of 10% of the sales. So you don't have to sell stuff for nearly as much to make really decent money. So you get to control the pricing, too. A publisher, when they're going to sell the book, they control the pricing. In this scenario, you are controlling the pricing of your NFTs. And again, if you are trying to publish your book on something like an Amazon or something like that, you do get to actually choose your own price when you do independent publishing. So a little bit more control there, which is nice. And then, of course, the collaboration that you're doing. Well, that is going to be inspiring. They're going to come up with ideas, and that idea, their ideas, with what they're doing with the visual art, with the manga, with the music, and all that kind of stuff is going to spark more ideas for you and help you create faster again and try new things that you wouldn't have tried before. Okay? I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to cover here. You know, having just the old model, it was the only way that it worked. It was the only way to get books out, right? A person couldn't afford to print a whole bunch of books and put them on giant trucks and ship them all around the world into all of these different bookstores. No one had those connections. That's why you had to go to these big 6 publishing companies. There are 6 major publishing companies in the United States. Actually, it might be down to 5 by now. I think 2 of them have combined yet again. But that is no longer the case. Okay, you can actually have print books, and they print on demand through Amazon and through some other different types of sites out there. That literally there's a digital file on file, and if someone says, "Oh, I want the print version of that instead of the Kindle version," it actually is getting automatically printed on a printer one-off and getting sent to that customer. That's a whole new world, right? And I'm so excited for creators out there. Now, there are analogs of this, what I kind of covered here in the music industry with record labels. There are some analogs as well in fine art and the gallery world and auctions and all of that kind of stuff. There are scenarios here where NFTs are exploding the possibilities. Basically, similar to what was new when Amazon came on board and how they were able to create some new options for customers out there. Web3, blockchain, smart contracts, NFTs is doing the same. It's doing the same. It's disrupting an industry that not too long ago was disrupted. Multiple industries. I'm talking entertainment in general. There probably are going to be some really interesting things around films, TV, any kind of art that you can think of. Heck, maybe even poetry. Maybe we'll have a poetry explosion here in the next 10 years. And other than maybe some, poetry slams or something, I don't know how the form has done as far as a career. Probably not much as a career, but that could change too. Who knows? It's a really neat time to be alive. I'm so happy to be sharing all of this stuff with you. Of course, I am in the process of creating a number of courses and seminars and eventually a mastermind to really, give artists an opportunity for collaboration, to meet other artists in different genres, in different, tangential fields. All of us who are creators, we can work together, help each other learn about all this new stuff, really understand the nuts and bolts of what it takes to create an NFT series and launch that on a blockchain that is definitely something that I want to be teaching you out there as well. I think I've covered enough today. This was 25 minutes long. If you made it to the end, I really want to commend you for really trying to dig deep and see what's possible for you in your career. I really, all you phenoms out there, people who are driven to do their art, I want you to have the best career you could possibly have. And I want you to change the world and really make a huge impact on people who need what you have to create. So please share this with 3 artist friends who you think could learn something from it. And of course, as I said at the beginning, if you can subscribe and or follow, depending on where you're watching this, that would be extremely helpful for other people when they're doing searches to find out more about us. And that's it. That's my big ask. Phenoms, I love you. And I will be back tomorrow with another video. Until then, adios from Texas.